You are invited to the observance of a holy Lent. Somewhere along the path, we picked up fear and we put it in our pocket. It looked a lot like safety, sparkly and alluring, and we slipped it in, thinking we wanted it along as a tool for the journey. A little further on, or maybe it was before, shame landed in that pocket too. It looked like responsibility, like the treasure map to being enough, and we welcomed it, thinking about how helpful it might be. And maybe somewhere else, pride glimmered along the road, singing of a life of meaning and work that matters, and we learned and carried its tune to sing along the way. And bit by bit, our pockets were filled with well-meaning burdens until the weight of them was so heavy that it was hard to put one foot in front of the other, until it was easier to stay in one place and to listen to their perspectives and forget all about the path or the journey, and to forget about the one who sang us into being, put shoes on our feet and filled our knapsack with seeds and sent us out to sow love in this world. So again and again, each year, each day, if we allow it, the Spirit invites us into the wilderness, where we can name each burden. Fear, I see you. You have me hoard up my resources and hold tightly to my time. You have me avoid what I don't know and make my world small. You keep me quiet. I do not need your kind of safety. I set you aside and choose to trust love instead. Shame, I see you. You have me review all my actions over and over, tallying up my insufficiencies. You teach me to hide, to mask, to overdo, to seek out proof of adequacy over and over. I don't need your kind of enough anymore. I set you aside and choose to trust love's view of me instead. Hello, pride, arrogance, apathy. Burden by burden, we set them aside. It is hard work. Regret tempts us to stuff them all back into our pockets. But grace and mercy sing loudly in this place. They make harmony with regret and then take over the melody, offering a chorus of peace that sustains us. We set them aside and we stand up. Angels tend to all of our wounds. And love patches up our shoes, gives us a new set of seeds, sings our heart into wholeness, and sends us back out on the road again. You are invited to the observance of a holy Lent. This snippet of Jesus' story is preceded by his baptism, with Jesus hearing who he is. You are my beloved child. This journey we hear about today will end with him in Galilee, ready to live into his call. But between the hearing of who he is and doing the work is the wilderness. The wilderness is the place that forms us. And when we lose our way, it calls us back to who we are. For Jesus, it is the place that his ancestors and heroes were held and formed following rescue from slavery and exodus from Egypt. It is a place that they daily saw evidence of God's love in the forms of manna and fire and cloud. It is the place that leads to the promised land. The wilderness is sacred. It is also a place in which it is hard to hide from oneself. It is quiet enough that we come face to face with our grumbling hearts and our temptations toward despair. Just send us back to die in Egypt. Oh, not manna again. Oh, look, a golden staff. In the wilderness, even this God incarnate can't escape the voice of temptation. I can only guess at what actually feels tempting for Jesus in these tests, and at what temptations await each of us in our wildernesses. But they are all seeming like kind of well-meaning burdens here. All basic human needs: to feel safe, to feel sustained, to feel significant and seen, to have agency and power, to matter. But they are turned on their head and warped by fear, and the risk, if we are not paying attention, is that we will try to meet all of those needs in ways that makes us forget who we are, who God is, what our call is about, maybe even lead to self-destruction and harm of others. Make bread, temptation calls. Choose comfort over sacrifice. Focus on the needs of the body over the needs of the soul. Jump, it offers. Use a spectacle of God's might to gather acclaim rather than the hard work of relationship. Rule, temptation dangles. Choose power and strength over the risky business of love. Jesus will, in fact, use his powers to make bread. It just won't be for himself alone. It will be for him and 5,000 folks who are so eager to have a taste of love that they follow him to a deserted place without their lunch. He will, in fact, cause spectacles and scenes to show off God's saving powers. It just won't be for himself alone. It will be for the broken bodies and outcast hearts that follow him. And ultimately, it will be him who walks off a cliff into crucifixion to be rescued into resurrection, not for him alone, but so that we can understand the depth of God's love that is more powerful than death. And he will ultimately hold a kingdom in his hand, but one that is established not by power, but by sacrifice, and is ruled by love. But before he can do that work, the wilderness. And before we can do that work, the wilderness. The space to stop, to pay attention, to see more clearly all the things that get in the way of knowing who and whose we are, to prepare the ground of our soul for spring and resurrection. Perhaps it is a physical space for you as well, or a landscape in the depth of your soul that is brought forth when you hear that poem, that song. Maybe it is the silence that is found on a hike through the forest. It is the sacred space that causes us to stop, to listen, to remember, to see more clearly. Without the wilderness, we get so wrapped up in the temptation that we start to believe it. It shifts the narrative of who we are, and we, with Adam and Eve, learn to hide from God. We forget the depth of grace that our Creator has for us. We feel shame. We are driven by fear, and we become independent actors and don't allow ourselves to experience love. Laying aside that temptation in favor of love requires intention, planned, quiet, regular reflection, wilderness. And Lent offers us that space. You are invited to the observance of a holy Lent. You are invited to sit yourself down in the wilderness of your soul, your holy soul, and to listen. To come face to face with fear and shame and pride and all the ways that would push you from the path of love. If you sit quietly, you will see these burdens coming, stirring up dust on the road, trying to obscure your view. But you're not alone here. There is a whole host of saints who have wandered this desert before you. There are volumes of words written that are trying to shout shame and fear away. And there is love that never leaves your side, that gently sits beside you and begs you to attend to more important things. To be so overwhelmed with grace and mercy and compassion and justice that shame and fear have no chance to direct your actions. You are invited to slow down, to lay bare your heart so that you might receive grace upon grace. Angels with bread in abundance and a Creator who will sing your heart back into wholeness, patch up your shoes, fill your knapsack with seeds, and send you back out into the world to sow love. Amen.